A forgotten artifact lies in pieces on a planet far from Earth. Few know it exists except those who took it back and those whose ancestors created it. 4 young people are thrown into a race against emissaries of the gods to find his pieces. Mistrust, greed, and magic are tangled in an endless web. What will the fate be of the universe once it is found and reassembled? Get Scepter of the Gods, The Rod of Truth now on Amazon, and get wrapped up in the saga that will not let you go.
Good morning, and welcome to the Motivational Devotion, where we are merging motivation and spirituality to create a daily dose of confident positivity. I hope that this morning's podcast will help you to be more spiritually and positively motivated so that you can transform your day. Good morning, I'm Mark the Writer, and I want to thank you for joining me today as we continue our series, 50 Ways to Love Your Soul. I hope you've been able to follow along with the series and are finding it helpful in getting your new year going in the direction of your lifelong goals. If you know anyone who could use some encouragement in setting goals, then please share this podcast or the blog version from motivational-devotional.com. Well, you would think that this would be the easiest topic out of the entire series of loving your soul, wouldn't you? I mean, who doesn't love peace and quiet? I knew someone who always wanted people to stop jabbering and just let there be peace and quiet, and so people would abide by the request, go find other things to do, and then this person would turn on the television. You do see what is wrong with that picture, don't you? If you don't, then I suppose this podcast is especially for you. When I decided weeks ago to make the topic for today, love some quiet, I did so knowing that a lot of people crave quiet and solitude, but then spend it with either the television on in the background, surfing through a social media feed, or listening to music. I am not bashing any of those settings, but today I want to illuminate the value of total quiet, total solitude. I suppose this is kind of a Japanese koan, kind of like, what is the sound of one hand clapping? There really isn't a logical answer that our Western minds can nail down, but the question is, what is the sound of an empty room? One could reasonably answer that if it is truly empty, no one is in it. And so, how would anyone know? It's kind of like that question of asking if a tree falls in the forest, does it make a sound if no one is there to hear it? Scientifically, we know that it does. Everything does. But let's assume that the room is empty except for the fact that you are in it. You can be standing, sitting, you can even give yourself a chair. Let's not overthink this. The room is empty except for your presence. Now, what is the sound of that otherwise empty room? You can imagine, so take 10 seconds and just imagine. I can wait. That seemed like a really long time, didn't it? If you are listening to anything like this, our brains have been trained by radio and television that dead air is a death sentence. And I hope I didn't lose anyone during those 10 seconds because now I'm just talking to myself. Well, actually, I'm recording this in my studio, and so literally I already am talking to myself. I digress. My apologies. During those 10 seconds, were there other sounds going on? Did you get a phone call and pause this podcast? Did you find other things to do in just that 10 seconds because it was boring and your brain already, within only 10 seconds, needed to be occupied? If so, you need this worse than I anticipated, and I am so glad you are here. For you in that little exercise, the sound of that empty room was whatever was going on during your 10 seconds. Few of us would ever have the opportunity to experience a real version of that exercise, and probably not many people would want to try it. I've seen a lot of video examples and talked to people with some kind of experience of total silence, and most people don't last more than a few minutes before they start to go stir-crazy. We have become so conditioned to our brains being constantly fed by an incessant stream of sounds, news clips, sound bites, video promos, commercials, and other people talking about this and that that we need a soundtrack of music or television in the background just to feel stabilized. Well, let me offer a compromise. To try dipping your toe into loving some quiet, do it outside, immersed in the soundtrack of nature. Don't silence your phone. Turn it off. Completely off. It will be okay, I promise, unless you have a family member about to go into labor or something like that. Otherwise, just go ahead and turn it off. Disconnect from the incessant stream. Go cold turkey. Then open up to the sounds that actually are already going on around you that you probably missed when you were plugged in. The wind. Birds. Crickets. Frogs. Leaves clattering across the grass. Maybe water in a nearby lake or stream or waterfall. If you're doing this at night and you can, just the sound of firewood crackling in the blaze as your only soundtrack can be a fantastic way to love some quiet. No, those scenarios aren't totally, completely silent, but most people aren't really ready for that yet. If you feel you might be, see how long you can be in a room of your home when no one else is there with nothing electronic turned on except maybe the heat or air conditioning, depending on where you live. Right now in my home, the heater just turned off. The dogs have drifted off to sleep, so there is no barking or other shenanigans, and I can hear the second hand of a battery-powered wall clock 10 feet away from me. That is the only sound, other than my computer fan and the keys clicking away on my keyboard. When I pause and tune out the clock, I can hear my pulse in my eardrums. I can hear the soft rush of air in my breathing. My husky is about 15 feet away from me, and I can hear her softly breathing. I'm not immersed in silence, but it is quiet. I'm also not going crazy with my brain thinking of all kinds of things. Even with my ADHD, I have trained my mind to love quiet. Here, I just look around and feel, and I don't think, not even a little. Here is where now is, and I am not distracted from my now. Now is where I am one with the universe. This is a great present I can give myself as part of loving myself because I have learned to love quiet. You won't go crazy, I promise. In fact, it is quite the opposite. The incessant stream of input will eventually take you down a road to crazy. But in some quiet, you will find you. When you find you, don't fear what you find, and trust that all of creation is conspiring in your favor. Trust that the universe always has your back and will be with you in your quiet. Anne Frank said, "The best remedy for those who are afraid, lonely, or unhappy is to go outside, somewhere where they can be quiet, alone with the heavens, nature, and God, because only then does one feel that all is as it should be." Thank you for taking the time to listen today. Please help keep this podcast going by following the Motivational Devotional Facebook page, following @Threefold Way Radio on Twitter, and sharing the written format of today's message from motivational-devotional.com on your social media. I am deeply grateful for your support, and thank you for letting Motivational Devotional be part of your journey. Peace out. See you tomorrow. Motivational Devotional is a production of Threefold Way Radio, LLC.